let me discuss what we have discussed in the just before the break. Before the break, we have completed about transaction-related things in your Hibernate. We have seen that, and we are going to discuss with your concurrency. What is the concurrency and how the concurrency issues will be there. Okay, these are the few things what we are discussing. Let us we'll go for that. So as I discussed that, okay, whenever we are implementing any kind of your transaction, so certain concurrencies which will be there. So how we can avoid that particular concurrency, that we are discussing now. Let me start with that. So for avoiding the concurrency, so we can have three different ways by which we can avoid the concurrency in our program, in our Hibernate related application. So one is that, okay, you have to set the transaction isolation level by which we can do that, or else implement the versioning concept by which also we can avoid the concurrency, or else okay, we can implement the locks. So by that also we can implement the concurrency issues can also be avoided. So how we can do that? So isolation level. So what are the isolation levels are there? Okay, so which particular isolation level we should put? Okay, let us will see this. First, we are going to discuss about isolation level. So isolation level determine the effect of the transaction as another transaction that are currently running and vice versa. And all the transactions are completely isolated and run concurrently without impacting to each other. So by default, this is a feature, because that is why we say that acid property when I am talking about. So we are talking about the isolation property, which says that all the transactions are completely isolated and they will run concurrently without impacting to each other. And we have to choose an appropriate isolation level so that we can prevent the concurrency issues also. So what are that? Okay, let us will see. So these are the various types of isolation levels which are been available. Let us will talk about that. One is that read committed, read uncommitted, repeatable read, and serializable are the four different type of your isolation levels are there, by which we can avoid the transactions, by which we can avoid the concurrency issues in our program also. So let us will talk about that. Okay, there is a small table which is there by which we can avoid the concurrency issues, depending on the isolation level locks. So you can see that read uncommitted lock. Okay, so if you are using the isolation level as read uncommitted, so set isolation level. If you go through the your Oracle or anything, then generally we set the isolation level like this. Set isolation level, read uncommitted, read committed, or repeatable read, or serializable. If you are using the read uncommitted, then all these are the type of your concurrency issues. Still it may occur. That means dirty read can happen, maybe the lost update can happen, non-repeatable read can also happen, or phantom read can also be happen. So this is what your read uncommitted kind of your isolation levels we can do. In this type of your transaction, if you are using the isolation level as read uncommitted, the data modified by the current transaction, but modification have not been committed. In this type of isolation, no locks are required. No locks are considered when the data is read. All concurrency problems, such as dirty read, lost update, or non or repeatable read, or phantom read can occur. That is what I said. So this is why you can see there is yes, it is there. That means all the concurrency problems may occur also. That's why it says yes. And by default, lock which we are using. So phantom read can occur within the isolation level. So that is what. So this can occur in the case of your read uncommitted kind of your lock if you are using, or the isolation level if you are using. So still it can come used. These are the concurrency issues to be used. Maybe happen. Then second kind of your isolation level, if you see, then we have something called as read committed kind of your locks which are there. In a case of your read committed, dirty read problem can be avoided. You can avoid the dirty read problem, but however the lost update, non-repeatable read, and phantom read problem can exist or can occur, okay, when even though you are implemented the read committed isolation level. So in this kind of your transaction cannot read the data that is being modified by the current transaction. So this will prevent the dirty read problem, because we know that, okay, dirty read problem cases, we can read the data even, okay, if there is any other transaction are trying to access the same resources. But however, if your implemented isolation level is read uncommitted, you cannot access that particular resources. So that is what we can say. Is it clear between these two? Any questions are there? Any questions are there? Let me talk about this. Now see, this is, you have a certain table which is called your employee table. We have here employee ID, employee name, address, salary, email ID. Maybe you have E1001. Now, same like that. I have this data. Maybe you think about this particular data if I am talking about. Now I have employee ID, employee name, salary and email are the data which is there. Now I am using this data. We'll consider that. Now what will happen? Now this is the employee data which is there. Now if I am talking about a user A, okay, user A is accessing this particular data. Now same time user B also accessing the same data. Okay, user A is accessing, user B is also accessing. These are the two users, those who are accessing this particular data also. Now what is happening? User A is trying to maybe read the data, or he is updating the data, whereas okay, user B is trying to read that particular data. This is what it is happening. We'll consider that. So maybe this is user A who is trying to access the data. At the same time, user B also trying to access the same data. But user A trying to update the values. And user B is reading the data. Now what will happen in this case? Okay, if you are trying to access, user A is trying to access or to update the values, and this is want to read that particular data. So user A, when it will try to update the values, maybe from Hyderabad to some other value, it is going to be updated by this, and user B also trying to change that particular values. In that case, what is happening now? You see. So if it is a dirty read problem, what will happen is, okay, so if I am changing the value See, let us consider that. This is, I am changing the value. Maybe I am changing to 56,000. But however, user, but however, in case of your user, B will get this particular data only. That is what 40,000 only it will get. Why it will get that particular data? Because user way when it is changing, it will not know. It can access the data. It can access easily. That is what the problem in the case of your dirty read. So dirty read problem, when you are reading the data, maybe somebody has updated, but you will not know because you will get the old data only. Okay, so this is what will happen in case of your dirty read problem. Okay, you will not know this, that there is a changes which has happened to this particular value. Okay, 56,000, there is a change has happened, that you will not know because user, you will get this particular value only. User A has changed, update the value, but however that value, whatever the changes happened, you will not know. That is called your dirty read problem. So even though you read uncommitted lock, if you will keep also, still dirty read problem can occur. Other problem anyway it will happen, but okay, that will be there. But however, okay, if you put read committed is the isolation level if you are using, in that case what will happen, if let us say I've used the read committed. Okay, so this is I am using read uncommitted. Okay, so there will be no changes. Okay, as it is, it will be there. Let me talk about now. This is read committed. If I am using read committed, what will happen? If this is the isolation level, if I'll put, then if you are updating the values, okay, you cannot read the data. Okay, which is not possible. Remember that. Okay, this is not possible now. You get my point? It cannot do. Can't read the data. If you have implemented the read committed kind of things, okay, then it cannot read the data. So however, what will happen? So you will not get these particular values. Until it will finish, then only you will get these values. Okay, then only you will get this particular value. Once, okay, but concurrently you cannot read the values. If you are getting also, you will get this particular value after it has finished. Okay, after it has finished, okay, then you can get the value. There is no problem. So this is what exactly will happen in this case. When it is updating the value, concurrently you cannot access that. After it has been finished, then only you will get this particular value. Okay, so this is what exactly will happen in the case of your read committed. If the lock has been happened. Is it clear now? Have you understood this? Read uncommitted, read committed. Have you understood or any questions are there? I want everyone to respond. Please acknowledge. If any questions you can ask. I want everyone to respond. Some of you have responded. Now, the second, then we have something called as a repeatable read also. In the case of your repeatable read, you'll see, okay, your repeatable read cases I will show you. In the repeatable read, your dirty read problem and lost update problem and non-repeatable problem also can be avoided, but however, phantom read problem cannot be taken care. So this is what we can talk about. Okay, so repeatable read problem. In this transaction, you cannot read the data. Okay, cannot read the data being modified by the current transaction. So, however, okay, dirty read problem can be avoided by this. And in addition, no other transaction can update the data that is read, okay, by the current transaction until the current transaction will complete. Okay, so hence, okay, you can avoid the lost update. And this isolation level prevents dirty read, lost update problem, and non-repeatable read, because in a single row, if you want to change the values, then it will come non-repeatable read. That can be avoided. But a query, if it is affecting, that will be comes under the phantom read. So that means a non-repeatable read is going to affect only one row or something, but not phantom read, it is going to affect multiple rows. So that can be, okay, there is a separate case. Okay, so non-repeatable read cannot avoid it, the phantom read actually. But however, dirty read, lost update and non-repeatable read can be avoided for you. Then the last type of transaction which we are saying, that is nothing but your serializable, okay, one. And if you are implementing the serializable, no transaction can read, modify or insert the new data while the data is being read or updated by any other transaction. Until unless it will complete, then only the next transaction it will go. So this is the part which we can talk about, the serializable cases. Okay, so serializable, that is why you see the isolation, the highest isolation level which you want to put, and where if you are putting this particular isolation level, no other transactions will be carried out. If any transaction, it is already been, okay, acquired by any particular users also. So that is the part, okay, we talk about your serializable isolation level. So now if I want to avoid this all the things, so I can use the serializable isolation level. A default isolation level is anyway it will be defined for each database, and if you want to change the isolation level, you can change also. So if you want to change the isolation level, see, this is the property which you have to set here. To configure the isolation level of the connection, please see this. Okay, this is the word you need to see. If you want to configure the isolation level of the connection, you need to provide the value for the isolation property, and these are the value of the isolation property. Whether you do not want any kind of your isolation level, you want uncommitted, you want a committed, you want repeatable read or serializable isolation level, which one you want to put, you can put it here. At the same time, okay, how you have to configure that in your Hibernate configuration file, this is the way how you can set your configuration file, like property name is equal to hibernate.connection.isolation is the property, and then you have to put the value like 1, 2 or 8 or 4, you can specify that value, and depending on that, okay, the isolation level will be set to your Hibernate application also, and accordingly it will read or write, okay, or you can do the different kind of your operations in your application level also. So isolation level set for a connection in a Hibernate, and you can use the even versioning. So this is what we have seen till now. That is nothing but your isolation level way. We can also implement the transaction concurrency issues can be avoided in our application also. But however, we can also go for the different other mechanism by which also we can avoid the your concurrency issues also. How we can do that? Okay, that is called your versioning. Okay, so that is the versioning. By using the versioning also we can avoid the concurrency issues. So how we can do that? How we can implement that versioning? Let us will see that. Can anyone tell me that, okay, versioning concept in Oracle, what is that? Anyone? Any point can you give? What is a versioning? In Oracle, we have something the concept of version. SQL part, I am not talking about anything. Okay, simple that. Okay, fine. So versioning concept, it is nothing but, okay, you will be specifying a certain value to the row, and any changes, okay, any changes when you are made also, there will be an updated versioning value which will come. So X row is there for a table. Say I have a table called as admin or anything. I have a X row. In X row, if I am doing the changes, updating that changes, the previous value and the second value also can be, you can see by using the versioning of that. So each time Oracle will contain a version that, okay, whatever the changes are happening to a particular row, X row or Y row, so that all the, okay, information we can get from the versioning also. So that is, we can avoid that time, okay, there is an inconsistent values are there. Yes, you can use the flashback versioning query also we can use. Now, will see that versioning also. So versioning information can also be kept in your Hibernate also. So versioning is a concurrency control mechanism in which the version information is added to the persistent entities. So you need to specify a version column by which, okay, we can specify that if this particular column is having any kind of your updation which are occurring, in that case we can specify, okay, the version information also. So each entity has a version that represents its state at a particular point of time in the database. The version information is stored in a column in each database table. So version column, what it will contain? It will contain the number. Create the column by using the integer data type. Contain a timestamp. Create the column by using the data type also. So this is the way how you can create a sample version column which contain a number and which should contain a timestamp created by the column of the data type. So Hibernate will automatically versioning the applications also. So this is the versioning which is there. When a record is modified in the database, okay, the Hibernate will increment the version number. This is very, very important. If you are doing any modification in the record, any row which has been modified also, automatically this versioning, okay, which is going to be updated for us. Explicitly we need to do. Otherwise, okay, you will not, though it is doing the modification, but if you want to see, then you have to use this versioning column. If you do not want to see that, okay, versioning information, you need not to think about. If a transaction tries to update a record in the database, then compare the version of the record in the database with the version of the transaction. So if there is an mismatch will occur, then, okay, that is older version, then it will throw in exceptions also. So you have to use version, a column version in the database table. You need to create a property of the version of the integer data type in the corresponding persistent class. You need to implement also. So you need to create a version element in the mapping file. So when you are creating the file, okay, that time this mapping file needs to be created for you also. Okay, so when you are mentioning, so you need to also mention like ID, property value, how you are giving. At the same time, you need to also specify a version column. So that, okay, this version information will tell us that, okay, what are the different, okay, time the values of the table are being changed. If you want to specify, then version will tell us. I'll show you a small example of this version, how to create. You could see that, okay, this is a sample example of a version which is there. Now version name of the, okay, one is version, column name is version, which is, as I told you, in database also we need to have a version. Then, okay, the version, okay, you can use that. So this is the kind of your version information which you can find in your table, as well as in a case of your class also we will contain the version as a column also. So this is how you can create a versioning, and we can access the version to know that, okay, if any changes are happened to this particular class and all. You can now see. This is what your date. You need to have a timestamp column you can create. The property must be declared as a date data type also you can do. This is where you need to declare the variable. So you can create a timestamp. Okay, so you need to map the persistent class with the mapping file timestamp element, and you can see this. Okay, this timestamp also. So version information and their timestamp, that is what time it has been changed also, it will tell you. So timestamp name is equal to timestamp, access field column and equal to timestamp. This is way how you can be versioning information can be stored into that. So this is the way how you can create a version and you can implement, okay, in our database how to implement that we have been discussed now. All right. So this is one way by which we can know that, okay, what are the concurrency issues are happened in that particular table, and any kind of your data, the data changes or anything if it has happened, then okay, we can avoid that particular, or we can see that particular changes, okay, in your versioning also. We want to use the versioning, the table should have created with a version field. If such, then can be added later. Yes, after that also you can create, there is no problem. But if there is any changes, but again the changes also you need to do for the class, again you have to do the changes in the Hibernate mapping file also. So you should see that, okay, all the changes have to be appropriate. Okay, that is what the first thing which you need to be implemented. Now implement the locks. Locks, okay, how you can do. This is the third type of your way by which we can avoid the concurrency in our program. So how do we implement the concurrency? Okay, how do we implement the concurrency issues? How we can fix the concurrency issues by using your locks? Okay, that we are going to study also now. Let me start with that. Implementing the lock. To implement the concurrency, okay, the lock control for a specific transaction, locks are applied on the transaction using a method called as a lock method. And this lock method will be present in your session interface, which will be containing this particular lock. And there are three different type of your lock modes are there, which we can use: lock mode read, lock mode upgrade, and lock mode write are the three different type of your modes generally which we can have, by which we can be specified. Lock mode read in the sense, okay, it will acquire a lock automatically when a record is read from the database, and upgrade acquires the database lock for the persistent objects that are loaded and updated, and acquires a lock automatically when a record is updated or inserted. At that time the write lock automatically it will take. Okay, so these are all the different kind of your locks generally a database will take. So now if you want to talk about the lock and how we can implement, you could see that. So there is a updation which is happening. Maybe there is an updation which is happening over here. So here this is the updation which you are doing. So this is, you see, session dot, okay, lock mode upgrade we are saying. So what is that I have done? Query session dot create query from product detail from where product ID is equal to product ID. Then we are running a query, that is update product detail set stock is equal to update log, where product ID is equal to product ID I have to. And then you can see that, okay, transaction commit. Until that, okay, this particular information will be run with a upgrade lock. And upgrade lock says that the database level lock from the persistent object that are loaded and updated, that time this particular lock can be applicable to do that. So this is way how you can specify the update lock is all about. That is a different kind of your locks what we can be specified over here. So we can use these locks and we can implement in our program. When you are writing the program, you can use this particular lock. If you are saying that, okay, persisting the value, better you can write, okay, write lock. If you are doing any upgradation and updating the values or anything, in that case, okay, upgrade lock you can use. And if you are reading or fetching the values with using a query and all, you can use the lock mode dot read lock you can use. So these are all the different kind of your locks which we can be implemented to the Hibernate implementation code, and by which we can avoid the concurrency issues which might happen for number of users, those who are connecting to that particular applications also. So that's the purpose why we should go for the lock and the concurrency issues which should be avoided. Any questions? I want everyone to respond. Only thing that, okay, the lock implementation, if you want to do, there's nothing but, okay, you have to write this only one, okay, line of code. Session.lock, okay, then this is all. That's it. Okay, it is more than enough to implement the lock, okay, to your applications also. Any questions? So this is about your Hibernate chapters. Okay, the 5 different chapters which are there. Chapter 1 to 5, okay, we have overview of Hibernate, mapping classes, querying database, persisting objects, and implementing transaction and concurrency are the 5 chapters which are there in the Hibernate chapters. You can implement that. Product is the table name. It is not that, okay, the session when it will be removed, then automatically it will be unlocked. Any questions? So hence we have finished your Hibernate chapters. Okay, so whatever the Hibernate are there, so we have finished that. Then the last one, which is, okay, we have the chapters, the module which you need to see. That is nothing but your Spring. Okay, Spring. Spring is a web application framework. Okay, it is being used. Okay, so there are 6 different chapters which are there in your Spring. We need to know about, okay, each and every one. Okay, we'll see that. So we'll go for overview of the Spring, implementing the dependency injection services, integrating the Spring with the web layer, implementing the aspect-oriented programming, then integrating the Spring with the business and the presentation layers, and managing the transactions. All these are the few things what we are going to discuss in your Spring framework also. All right. So we'll see that, okay, how we can implement the Spring. So we'll discuss about the few points about the Spring, then, okay, we'll more on the discussion on tomorrow. It will be there on the Spring also. Okay. Any questions? You can go ahead. Just you have to click on plus, give the acknowledgement, or any questions or anything. It is there as part of your Hibernate. Okay, fine then. So we can go through the Spring application. Okay. Can we have? No. We can have the logs we can implement. Okay, there is nothing. That is what I said. No, one line of code which I have to write. Log, nothing else. Okay. Let me start with the next part. Okay, that is overview of the Spring, how we can implement that we are going to discuss also. What is overview of Spring? How to implement overview of Spring, that we are going to discuss now. So rationale about this particular course, will come back to the Spring application. When the requirement of a web application is changed, the business logic needs to be changed. So sometimes, okay, obviously, okay, till now which we have discussed that, okay, we have discussed about how to create a view using your JSF we have implemented. We have also discussed about how we can create a web application that is using your ORM tool. If we are implementing, how we can use and how we can store the data into the database. That's the part also which we have been discussed. And then the last one, it is nothing but the middleware services, that is nothing but your business logics. If you want to implement, how do I implement the business logics? Okay, that we are going to discuss now. So these are the few things what we are going to be discussed now. So business logic needs to be changed. If any changes are happening with the business logic, how we can do that particular, how we can avail that business logic changes, that we are going to discuss also. So the change in business logic affects the other components of the web application as they are depend on each other. In other words, the component of the web applications are tightly coupled. You can see to this. And therefore, to make the web application easily updatable, the components of the web application must be made loosely coupled. So our application should be made loosely coupled so that easily updatable, or any component freely can be reusable and it can be updated also. So hence the web application which you are creating, it should be loosely coupled architecture. It should not be tightly coupled architecture, because in a tightly coupled architecture we cannot reuse that application again. We have to rewrite that particular application. So Spring framework will enable the developer to create a web application which are loosely coupled also. So how do I create that? How I can implement that, we are going to see. And here in this particular session, you will be learning the Spring framework and Spring architecture. That's we are going to discuss actually, more on that. So what is all about Spring? How it is there? How to implement the Spring framework? That's we are going to discuss also. So introducing to the Spring framework, how to implement the Spring framework. Let us will see this. So web application is spread across the following architecture layers. Relational database layers which we have. So one is that we have relational database layer, we have presentation layer, we have business layer. These are the three different layers generally which we'll have. The most important part of the web application development is to implement the business layer. And the business layer which will access the data from the presentation layer, process the data, store the data into the database, interact with both presentation layer and your database layer. And this is the heart of the application. That is the business layer which we are doing. That is, till now, who will be acting as a business layer? That is nothing but mostly the model component which will be acting as the business layer for you, which is going to store the data into the database and all which we are doing now. But now, we need to create a separate business layer which has to be created, and this business layer, which will be the bean component again, which will act, the data which will be taken by the presentation layer and send back the data to the database layer. Such kind of things, if you want to be implemented, then we go for the business layer only. So how do we do that? How we can implement the business layer and all, that we are going to discuss. Now, before we go for the Spring framework, first of all, we should see that, what is the other services or other technology which is there by which we use to create the business layer. Anyone can tell us, do we have any other strategy or any other technology which is used to be there by which we used to create a web layer or the business layer we used to create and implement the business logic purely? I want to hear from all of you. fine. Anything else? Okay, Harsha is told from Bashir Bagh. Servlet do you use as a business logic? Not exactly, right? Yes. From Rosary Garden, EJB or a POSIO can be used to create a business layer. Very nice. Yes, Bean we used to create. Okay, so correct. Yes, you are correct. That is nothing but your enterprise Java Bean. Okay, or we are using the Bean. Okay, that is a normal POSIO component which will be acting as the business layer where we used to write our business logic code or and everything, or getting the data from the presentation layer and sending the data to the business database. All that are the few things which we used to do through the EJB by using the Bean. Okay, that can be your EJB. But in case of your EJB, okay, the best the part which is not or the part which is very much complex is nothing but it is based on the J2E architecture, and the J2E design pattern which is we need to implement with an application server. Without an application server, EJB cannot run, or you cannot write the application without the application server itself. Because all the EJB components, whatever the business layer component which you have created, that component will sit on the application server only. So okay, we cannot do any kind of things okay apart from the your web in a simple web server we cannot do. So unit testing is very difficult for that application, those who are closely associated with a J2E container. So this is very difficult in the unit testing. So now okay, we comes to the Spring framework. Hence we are using the Spring framework. The best part of the Spring framework, it is nothing but we can use any kind of your server. It is not mandatory that okay we have to use only the application server into that. Any kind of your server also which we can use in the Spring framework to create, implement the business logic also. So this is what the best part or the beauty of your Spring framework for us. So aims to overcome these problems by enabling the use of simple Java Bean, that is the POSIO, to implement the business logic for a web application, and aims to minimize the dependence of application code on its framework. The Spring applications are not required to perform API lookup. There's a few things which we can talk about the Spring framework. So the Spring applications are not required to perform API lookup. It is not being used. Spring is a modular framework, okay, and has the following features. Okay, so what are the features about the Spring? Let us will talk about. One is that okay, pluggability. We have dependency injection services which we have. We have aspect-oriented programming. Okay, we have container features which are available in the Spring, and the lightweight features. These are the okay 5 different framework okay which we can be divided. The 5 different features which are being provided by you by using the Spring, we can implement our code. Okay, so this particular one, okay, each one, every feature we are going to discuss about within the Spring and how it is working, that we are going to discuss also. What is the pluggability, what is the dependency injection services, AOP, and container and lightweight. Okay, each one we are going to discuss more on that. So these are the features about this Spring framework. Okay, the 5 features of the Spring framework. We'll see again, okay, there are different components of the Spring framework, okay, how we have been discussed about the different components of your Hibernate, like we have, say, configuration, session factory, session, transaction criteria, and query. Similarly, we'll also have okay, the components which is available even in case of your Spring also. That's we are going to discuss. Before we go for that, we'll see that, okay, what are the feature of the Spring which is there, and how it is being using, that we'll see now. So first of all, the feature that is nothing but your pluggability is one of the feature which we talk about in your Spring. So what is says in that? Okay, what is the pluggability is all about? Pluggability, which is says that okay, your Spring will allow you to create a business layer objects with each other by using the XML configuration files. So When the application is executed, Spring automatically creates an instantiate all the object relationship on demand. So it is not required that, okay, we need to explicitly specify that, okay, which object need to be executed and all. So you can plug a new services to the modified and existing one easily in a case of your Spring, because XML configuration file which will be used for calling the services and all. And these application objects therefore called as pluggable objects. The services objects and everything are called your pluggable objects, by which we can easily call the existing services and we can call the new services also. That is what we say as a pluggability. Is it clear now? Any questions in this? You can ask. Give me a minute. Okay, now pluggability, I think now we have understood about why the pluggability we are saying about the feature of the Spring, because we have the applications, those who are called as a pluggable objects. And Spring have that, okay, configuration files also which will be carried out. Now the next thing which we are talking about, okay, the next feature of the Spring, which is called your dependency injection services. Okay, so what is dependency injection services? Let us will talk about that. Dependency injection. The Spring framework promotes the concept of loose coupling. We know already that in the rationale of the course also we are talking about, that is Spring framework promotes the concept of your loose coupling by using the concept of dependency injection services. That is one part. With the dependency injection, you need not to create a business layer objects yourself or associate them with each other in your code. The Spring framework creates a business layer objects and associate them with each other, okay, as defined in the configuration file also. So dependency injection eliminates the need of lookup, allows the pluggability reuse of the existing code and maintenance and testing that. So this is what we implement the dependency injection services. Give me a minute. So this is about your dependency injection services. Now you can see I have a class called as student class. It is there. Okay, we'll consider that, okay, this particular student class which is having maybe student ID, student name, and one more, okay, that is nothing but your course. Now course is an object which is there. This is also a property, okay, of the student class, because this is, as a member it will be there, course object. Okay, now this is the student class. Maybe, okay, you will have another class, that is your course class, which is there. Course class will have course ID, then course name. Okay, then we have nothing but your the fees, the duration. All these are the part of your course, okay, course file. Now what will happen? Now if you see that, okay, this dependency injection, what it says, the course object now directly depends on this particular course object. If you see, okay, this particular course object which you have been implementing, this is directly depends on this particular course object. So you have written the course object here, so directly it is depend on this, okay, your say course object. That means you are tightly coupled, okay, student class and the course class both are, okay, using the tightly coupled architecture where, okay, you have to go through the course. Maybe if I want to, tomorrow I want to change this particular course object to new course object, okay, maybe it's then one more class it has been developed and I want to use that, okay, I cannot use this, okay, I cannot go for a new course object. That is not possible for me. So that means, okay, so runtime, any kind of your changes if I want to do on the course object, maybe so tomorrow a new properties have come for the courses and all, a new class I have created, I cannot change this. That is exactly what we talk about, a tightly coupled architecture. Whereas in the case of your Spring architecture, we do not have that. Okay, so what we are trying to implement is, we want to implement a loosely coupled architecture where I will not specify the course, okay, object. Rather, I may specify, I'm just saying, okay, let's say object. Now I will give any kind of value there. Okay, I may specify any kind of value there. Okay, this is not, okay, tightly coupled, that one. At the runtime, I may specify any kind of your value. So this is what, okay, just to give you a concept that, okay, what is exactly faced by the dependency injection. So dependency injection by which, okay, we are loosely coupled architecture, how we are developing, in the sense a class will not be, okay, closely or tightly will not be associated with another class. At the runtime, if you want, okay, any changes are required to that particular class, we should be able to do by using your configuration files also. We should not do the physical coding or, okay, the class code again, it should not be rewritten. So that is what your dependency injection services says actually. So this is what we need to talk about your dependency injection. Am I clear to you? Any questions? Everyone to respond quickly. I want everyone, please respond quickly. Okay then. So this is about your simple concept about the dependency injection services which we are talking about. Yeah, student, now it is not dependent because, okay, this is object, it can be of any object it can access. But if I am saying course object, okay, that is called your tightly coupled architecture. Okay, dependency injection is different. So course object, now it is nothing but your course OB. Now it is tightly coupled architecture. Now we are not implementing the dependency injection services. When I am saying object OB, that is a kind of your you are giving loosely coupled architecture. That is, any kind of your object also can be specified at the runtime. Now the next one, it is nothing but your next feature, that is nothing but your AOP. Now AOP feature is what? This is actually, you know that till now procedure oriented programming, object oriented programming. Now you will be understanding one more type of your programming, that is called your aspect oriented programming. AOP means aspect oriented programming. That is what we are going to understand in this Spring based module, which will be talking about the aspect oriented programming. How we can develop the aspect oriented programming, that we are going to discuss here in this case. So we'll talk about the AOP, aspect oriented programming, and how to implement the aspect oriented programming in our program. That we'll see now. So AOP, it will separate the application logic from the system level services such as transaction management, logging, and security. These services are called cross-cutting concerns. Key to this, there are some words are there: cross-cutting concerns, system level resource services, and we have something called as aspect, modularization. These are all so these few words, if you know, then you can easily know that. What is aspect oriented programming? Aspect is nothing but your defined as a modularization, that is the concerns whose implementation cut across multiple objects. So that is called your aspect. That means when you are running, when you are going for the different modules, when you are executing in a particular application, each module every time will have certain concerns which will be executed also. That is transaction management, logging, security implementation will be compulsorily executed in each module. Without that, the module cannot be completed. Any module you may execute in an enterprise application also. Compulsory we require a transaction management, compulsory we require a logging, compulsory we require a security implementations also. So to avoid this particular one, the transaction management should not be part of our main business logic. Logging should not be a part of the main business logic. Security should not be a main business logic. Main business logic should run, these transactions, logging and security should run in a separate module. That part, if it is dividing the cross-cutting concern, that is not the part of the main business logic, which is the catalyst or helper to that main business logic, which should be called as a cross-cutting concern, should be run in a different modules. That is what your aspect-oriented programming says. You will not see in a normal application, because in a normal application we will not have a transaction management or a logging or a security application. Otherwise, we may not talk about. But when we are talking about an enterprise application, obviously any module, whenever we are running, we are thinking about the transaction management, we are thinking about logging, we are thinking about the security aspect of that particular program. Hence, we are talking about this. So that has to be avoided by using the aspect-oriented programming, that is cross-cutting concerns implementations which we are doing. That services need to be written in a separate module and it has to be run. So that is what we talk about here. Aspect-oriented programming is all about. Aspect is defined as a modularization of the system-wide concern whose implementation cut across multiple objects within the applications also. That is what we talk about your aspect-oriented programming. Aspect will encapsulate a behavior that needs to be implemented in multiple objects of the applications also. Now, this is all about your aspect. Any questions about aspect? Anyone can ask me. If you have any questions on aspect, you can ask. I want everyone to respond. Please respond. quick. AOP, any doubts? Any point if you have not understood? Or first of all, AOP itself, what is that? Okay, it is not understood.
Hello.
Yeah, please tell.
Hello.
Please tell, please tell.
Real time where we will. Hello. Hello. Can you able to hear?
Yes, you are audible. You please stop. No, you are not audible. You are not audible again.
Hello.
Yes, now you are audible
Hello.
again.
In real time where we will use this AOP, sir?
Real time in the sense, okay, see, when you are using the username and password, when you are using, okay, maybe any kind of applications, when you are banking application you take, or maybe a railway reservation system you take, or a airways reservation system you take, any online banking applications also you take, any page wherever you are moving, maybe fund transfer I am saying. Okay, you are going to the ICICI Bank. Okay, so in ICICI Bank we have something called as fund transfer. In a fund transfer, okay, what you will give? You will give the payee name, you will tell the amount, and you will tell, okay, what is the, okay, to whom you have to pay. Then you have to submit, and then you have to give some kind of your codes in your debit card, and it will be successfully saved. Now, this is a module called as fund transfer. Now, the fund transfer module, when it is running, so there is a security services are running or not. You think about the application wise. There will be some security services, that is, this login is yours or not, that it is checking. Okay, and if any kind of error has occurred in your browser or anything, for that, okay, transaction log, it has to be there, so that, okay, it will be stored in the application. Sometimes, okay, network will have a problem and your fund transfer will not happen. So that time also there will be a log values has to be stored into that. This is also we have to write the code. We cannot just write now the code that, okay, the value you have given the account, then you transfer, update. If any problem is happening in the network, then we will not know. So when you are writing a real-time application, though it is looking a small application, but okay, internally we will check all this. Security services will check, transaction log will take, okay, or any other things, okay, values also need to be stored, so that, okay, if anything it is fail by chance, okay, then we should able to see that, okay, what is the actually the root cause about that. Now, when you are talking about these all the things, now actual business logic is what you have, okay, given the value, it has to be stored in the some other one by using the NEFT. But, okay, there are certain other services which background is run without knowing you, right? Okay, we do not know that, okay, there is a transaction log is there or security services is running, all that things we do not know, but still it is running. What AOP says is that, okay, main business logic when it is running, okay, the other part of the transaction logic should not be the part of our main business logic. You separate it. You separate it. That means this code will not be clubbed with your transaction log code, or with is security code will not be there. These all are separately, they will be running, and this part of the code will be separately running. That is what your AOP says. You get my point, what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Mute your mic and speak. From Rosary Garden. From Rosary Garden. I'm not getting your audio or video. Can you please unmute your mic and speak?
Mute already.
I'm not getting your
Hello.
voice. It is badly breaking.
Hello.
Can you speak for some
Okay.
words?
Yeah, hello. Hear me?
Yes, yes. Now can you go ahead?
Yeah. Sir, these system level servers, I think this application handles this all. So, do allow us to write all and to from application logic?
First of all, we need to know one thing that, okay, in a Spring, when we are talking about in a Spring, we will not write in the application server first of all. We can write even Spring application in a Tomcat server also. That is the best part.
Yeah, that means web server. Okay.
We do not
Yeah.
require even also application server. First point also we have seen, no, that okay, application server is not required like EJB. In a J2E architecture, we require that, okay, application server and all. Yes, by the way, okay, in J2E we have the transactions or and all. We can write also using the CMT and all. I'm not talking about only a transaction. The security system, maybe the transaction logs which we are talking about. So if we have written the code, that code which will be not the part of our main business logic, that in the same file may not be written. It should be written in a separate file. In a separate module we are going to execute that. So that the performance of the application will be more. That is what exactly.
So we yes.
Yeah.
So we are going to write level services on our own. We will separate it from the application logic. This is what we are going to do.
Correct. We will do that only. Okay, we'll write in a separate module these all the things, and on top of that, okay, on the business logic, we'll execute, but it will be running in a separate module.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Pallavi.
Sir, clear now. That was not becoming.
No. Put your mic very near, because I'm not heard.
Hello.
Yeah, please tell now.
I was not able to understand this AOP, but what we exactly, correct me if I'm wrong, what exactly we want to, all the servers are running to do all that we are going to do, in, like security, transaction, whatever. We hope it separate, that they do not, buses are not seeing each other, okay, working at the same. This is what we want to do to AOP, something else. Purpose is this.
One point, it is very badly taking your voice, okay, but still what I understood, that is, yes, you are correctly said, that is, okay, from the program we'll be separating that, and we are going to write in a separate module, and then we are going to implement. Okay, so it will be not, or you can say, physically, if I say the code will be not the part of our Excel business logic.
Okay. Okay, I got it. Thanks.
Fine. So, any other questions from anyone? Do you have any other questions from AOP? Because AOP is a different, little bit of a different in a case of your Spring when we are talking about the comparative to the others. Hence, I am thinking about the AOP more. Okay, so other things anyways, okay, will come across the different type of your words, but AOP is a word, okay, which is a bit different. That's why. So coming back to the next part, okay, what is nothing but your container. So container, the Spring framework is a container that holds all the application objects. Obviously, it is also responsible for managing the life cycle, and you will also need to describe how the application objects will be created and all, configured and associated to each other. The container will create those objects and associate them together. That is what we say that, see, this third point when you are talking about, this is talking about one thing. here that okay, you need to describe how the application object will be created. You need to configure and associate it with each other. That means what? We'll not associate that in the actual in the program code. We are not going to associate that all the things which we need to be specified in the configuration file and all, so that at the runtime if we want to associate, we can easily associate them. That is what we says that loosely coupled architecture which we need to be created in a case of your Spring. So Spring also will have the container based architecture which you are been implementing, so it will contain all the application objects and all. Spring is a lightweight system, so Spring is a lightweight framework that makes easy to configure and create a complex application, and well-defined modules which is based on the dependency injection and AOP. These modules will provide the loosely coupling code because each and every one will not be dependent on each other, and the developer has a choice using all modules of any specific module as per their application requirement they can use. So that is the some of the few points which we can talk about your Spring. Now when I'm talking about the Spring with EJB or with maybe a Spring, because we can also develop a MVC based application using a Spring. If I'm talking about with a struts based application also we can do. So if I want to compare between them, so let us. Spring is a comprehensive framework that provides you the functionality of several J2E technology in a single framework. Spring has given a lot of features like implementing the MVC, writing the business logic. All these are the few things which are being given, writing the business logic code in a separately. So writing your aspects also separately. These are all the some of the features what you are being provided comparative to the other your J2E technologies also. Now coming back to the EJB and the Spring. EJB is a specification developed by Java and JCP, whereas Spring is a popular non-standard open source framework and which is developed by your interface 21 inclusive. EJB does not provide you with the flexibility of selecting only those features, but whereas you can use the Spring any of one of the feature and you can develop your own application with the same features. EJB is a programming interface, makes extensive use of annotations, declaration services such as transaction management and security also are configured using annotation, but however in a Spring framework it is based on XML configuration. So declarative services and Spring enabled applications are configured using XML services also. So easily you can configure and you need not to put that into the files also. So they will be in a separately, you have to write in the XML, and whatever the changes if you want to do, you can do the changes in the XML file which is automatically taken care by the container, and now you can change at the runtime also. That is the best part. And MVC framework provides a clear separation between the controller, is flexible and supports several view technologies. Spring will support JSP, velocity, tiles, and JSF also will be supported. And you can configure the controls using the dependency injection services, annotations we can also use, and validators and application objects also can be supported by the Spring also. That is all about the few things about the Spring which we can talk about. Now we'll talk about, this is all about the features about the Spring which we have discussed, the different features of the Spring, like lightweight feature, AOP feature, dependency injection feature. All these are the different features like pluggability, container are the features which we have seen, 5 different features. Now we are going to discuss about the very important thing, that is nothing but your Spring based architecture. What are the different type of your components which are available in the Spring based architecture? So let us will talk about that also. So the Spring framework has a layered architecture of 7 well-defined modules. I told you that in a case of your Spring, we can develop the Spring-based application. We can develop the Spring-based application using any of the module also. So it has given 7 well-defined modules, and we can choose any of these modules and to create our own applications also. so which has not been provided in case of your EJB and all. So what are the modules you can see? We have core module, we have application context module, DO module where you can data access object which we can write, ORM module, we can write the code for implementing the ORM tool by which we can access the data from the database using the object-oriented strategy. AOP module we can write, web context module we can do, Spring Web MVC module which we can write. So all these are the 7 modules are built on the top of the core container module and which are used for creating, configuring and managing the Java beans also. So these are the certain modules which are being provided in a case of your Spring framework it is concerned. Now when I am talking about the different modules, when I am talking about, you can see that 7 different modules, AOP, ORM, DO, web context application, MVC and core modules. So on core modules, every other modules are based upon. So this is what we talk about, the Spring module is all the way. So each and every module they will be in a differently, like core module which will be available in the org.springframework.core package which will be available, and it will give the fundamental functionality of the Spring framework which will be provided, and it will provide the bean factory and all, and this is a basis for implementing the dependency injection with the application and creating the beans as per the bean definitions and all that we can do by using the bean factory. And the bean factory is an important component of your core module. So remember that. That is one point which we can talk about. Then we come back to the DO module. When I'm talking about the DO module, where it will access the data from the databases such as different technologies like Hibernate, or we can use JDO. Then we can also use JDBC, or the different type of your technologies which we can use for accessing the data from the database, and you can manage the data connections, handling the exceptions. And to implement the DO module in your web application, we can use org.springframework.do is the package which we can use for implementing the DO module in our Spring framework. These are all the different type of your modules, generally what you can find in a case of your Spring is all about. But apart from that, there are other modules also which will be there, like ORM module. We have we have web context, AOP and MVC, and application module which are also the part of your Spring framework, and we need to use that particular modules to work on that, to work on different type of your applications of the Spring. And whenever we are going to create the applications, we need to see that these modules, how it is will be helpful for us. So right, so that is a few things which we can talk about as part of your Spring framework it is concerned. Any questions so far? I want everyone to please ask a question if you have. We want to use the Hibernate with the Spring, it will be used with the ORM module. Yes, ORM module you can use mainly, that is what we are using. DO you can use, but if I want to use mainly, we are using in the ORM module, the Hibernate features. And ORM module is based on the DO module only. Remember that. That is why you can say DO above than, that is ORM feature. So you can say ORM module is based on the DO module only. MVC, because in case of you're using the Spring framework also, we can create the MVC based application where view can be a JSF. You can specify the bean component, that is Spring component. Bean also can act as a model component also, and you can create the containers, controller also. And you can create a Spring based the MVC based application using Spring also. That it can also be possible. That are okay, different modules which are been available, like web context module is also a module. Basically this module is built on the application context module, and this will give creating for web-based application. When you are creating, then we can use this, and it will be implemented using your org.springframework.web package. We can use this. So this will be okay for using for integration of frameworks like struts or a JSF, integrating with your other applications. If you want to do, then web context module which will be used for that. All right. And if you want to use AOP, then we have to go for org.springframework.aop package, which we can be implemented. Fine then. That's all. Okay, this is a few things what we have been discussed. Tomorrow we are going to discuss about what is the different thing, like our application objects is what, how we can create the application objects. Okay, then how we can create a simple Spring application. If I want to develop, how I could develop the Spring based applications, that we are going to discuss in tomorrow's class. And I think if you remember, okay, tomorrow we have 9 to 3:30 is the class which will be there. So almost the Spring which we want to complete on that day. But tomorrow we want to complete. So I want to complete dependency injection services, Spring with a web layer also we are going to complete, and implementing AOP we will also finish that. And last class, okay, which will be on 10th, okay, where we are going to conduct on the business and presentation layer and managing the transactions. That day we can complete that. All right. So this will be the schedule. So tomorrow we'll have the full day. So we can create, we can write the different programs within the Spring, and we'll try to try to complete these particular sections, chapter 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so AOP is also very good module, okay, which you need to remember. Okay, I'll show some few demos, okay, which is very small and which will be working with easily. So that is what we are trying for, and we'll see that how we can do the Spring based applications and all these things also. Fine, then, thank you. So that's the point about the Spring based applications which we want to be developed here. And I want all of you to tell me that if any kind of things which we want to do any extra thing, you can tell me, so that I will prepare accordingly. Apart from this, the training, till that, if you have anything you want, this could be done, so you can tell me, so that within these 2 days we can try to do that also. Anything, whatever it comes to in your mind, can you please write? Quick. No break. For 2 minutes. Others, please write. Okay, fine. I got from Pallavi 1. Others, can you quickly tell me? Apart from that, okay. Any other things? Sir, 9 to 3:30 tomorrow. Yes, Santana. Fine then. Thank you then. Fine. Okay, so I'll definitely see that. Okay, Pallavi, we can do that. Okay, so we'll meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the shop. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. We'll meet tomorrow at the same 9 o'clock, and we'll discuss about the screen. Thank you. Bye from my end.